promoting and supporting some of the cornerstones of the American experience. It's all about family, faith, and freedom. Now let's get back to the Curtis Report with your host, Barry Curtis.
Welcome back to the Curtis Report. We appreciate you joining us. We do this thing every Sunday, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., Dallas-Fort Worth's preeminent conservative talk radio. We're number one. We're number one. Everybody else is chasing us, folks. We're number one. Thanks for listening to us every single Sunday. I love my folks on Facebook, Curtis Report on Facebook page. Love you people. You're awesome. Wearing the T-shirts, so on and so forth. You can follow along with us on our show and see former guests, current guests, future guests on our website, which is thecurtisreport.com or thecurtisinitiative.com. It'll take you to the same place. We appreciate you being part of the show. We talk about family, faith, and freedom here. And, of course, I'm your humble host, Barry Curtis. So thanks for being a part in making this thing a success. It is not unappreciated. We appreciate that there. Really cool here, our next guest. And, I like the uniqueness about us, the uniqueness about Christianity. I like being able to praise Jesus in a lot of different ways. And this is really cool here. And I want to welcome to the Curtis Report author Kevin Harvey. Kevin, welcome to the Curtis Report.
Well, thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Well, just fine. I appreciate you being here. Before we get into your book, it's your road book, All You Want to Know About the Bible and Pop Culture, Finding Our Creator and Superheroes, Prince Charming, and Other Modern Marvels. I love that title there. Before we get into that book, tell us a little bit about you and why you come to write this book.
Well, I've been working in publishing for about 12 years now, mostly in editing with many different Christian publishers. And the opportunity just came about to write a book that one specific purchaser was interested in, just talking about the different ways that you can find the Bible in pop culture. And when it was asked, when I was offered my way, or at least being considered, I just knew that this was the book that I was born to write at this time in my life, because I've been just obsessed with pop culture, with movies and television and music and different areas all my life. And especially in the last several years, just being able to watch a movie or see a TV show like Lost or watch Man of Steel, and all of a sudden just things are just popping out at me where, just the biblical metaphors are just being, surrounding these plots. And I'm just really soaking it in. And I thought, somebody needs to write a book about this someday, because there are so many areas of pop culture where the Bible and the themes of the gospel are just exploding, where others may not necessarily recognize that.
Before we get into the actual book, tell me about that. You said this was the book you were born to write. How did you know that? Through prayer? How did you come to that conclusion? You knew you were born to write that book.
Well, it was because, that's hard to explain. I've taught. I've taught Sunday school or led small groups or, preached, on several occasions where I'm constantly using clips from Lost or Seinfeld or Superman or something as the basis of a starting point for a lesson, for a theme. And so when I told my friends, about the idea behind this book and the opportunity that I had, or at least at that point might be having to write it, they agreed that this is, if there was one book, that you were going to write, this was it, because themes, the themes of these shows and these movies just pop out at me, and I just get so excited. I can put aside some of the other negatives about the movies or the shows if the themes in them are really, if the biblical parallels are coming out, so I can kind of forgive some of the other inconsistencies or the things or the ends lost, I can get over with because of how great the show was before that.
Let me ask you, and your book centers around what we can find, what biblical messages we can find in pop culture. That's unusual, because so much of mainstream Christianity and conservatism tells us that pop culture is the antithesis of Christianity or conservatism, but you don't think so, and you found things that were different.
Right. I think it's one of the reasons I wrote this book is for the church audience, for the people who we call themselves Christians. I would love for them to kind of open their eyes to the idea that pop culture actually loves the Bible. And the Bible is the best-selling book of all time. In between its covers, you're going to find, stories of redemption and forgiveness and grace, and David versus Goliath, the Good Samaritan, obviously the sacrificial story of Jesus. And it's these themes that pop culture just fills their covers with, fills their movies and their stories with, whether they're realizing it or not. And so I think that our Creator, who created us in His image, He's going to show up in our artistic creations of our own, whether we intended it or not. And so I would love it for the church audience to recognize that pop culture is not necessarily something to run from. Now, I'm not condoning, watching, or reading, listening to anything and everything, and there's certainly boundaries, right, I believe.
Right.
But I think that overall, we should look at the movie audience, the television audience. The 15 million people who watched the Walking Dead finale, look at them as a mission field, so to speak. And why are they so obsessed with that show? And maybe there's conversations to be had, along those lines.
Give us an example of where we can find a biblical message. Give us a few examples in pop culture that your book brings out.
Well, I've been, watching the show on Netflix called Daredevil, which is the latest thing, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter. It's a TV show set in the Avengers universe, and so this has to do with the superhero Daredevil and the blind lawyer Matt Murdock. And he, in the end, whether he's acting by day as a lawyer or as a superhero by night, he is fighting for justice for people who the society has given up on or doesn't believe in or doesn't trust, and people who can't afford help. He works as an advocate, and that word advocate is used in the Bible as something that we as Christians are called to be, fighting for the injustices in this world. And so that's just one idea that just recently popped up. Something I'm watching. It
used to be clearly, particularly when I grew up watching television in the 60s, 70s, even 80s, it used to be a clear lesson, if you will. There was a clear good and evil. Good always won out. It doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be blurred lines between clearly good guys and bad guys. Sometimes the bad guys seem to win, or at least the good guys don't win. What are you finding?
You're right. We don't get as many feel good, good always wins stories as we used to. You can no longer go into a TV show or a movie knowing for sure that the hero won't die.
Right. Right.
But and that's unsettling at times. So a lot of times you're paying $50 for a movie, you want to be entertained and walk out feeling good. But in the end, I'm okay with that because those stories replicate what happens here, in the real world, where sin, overall, sin, wins its battles. It's not going to win the war, but it wins the battles many times. And when the bad guy wins, that's what happens here on Earth. But they're not going to win in the end.
Yeah. What's the takeaway from this book? What do you want our audience, your readers, to take away from this book?
Well, besides, like what I mentioned earlier about, the church audience to kind of open their eyes to the idea that pop culture loves the Bible and that there's many things in pop culture that can be redeemed for the gospel, I would really, even more than that, really love to reach that unchurched audience, the fans of Lost, of the Avengers, of Superman, of different reality shows, music fans, reach them and begin discussions with them along where they are, meet them where they are. That's what I hope to do with this book and with just ongoing discussions and writings about pop culture, looking at the things that people are watching and listening to today. I want to go to them, encourage other Christians to do the same, to go to them and find them and have discussions along the lines of what the shows, the movies that they watch. Absolutely.
We're speaking with Kevin Harvey, author of All You Want to Know About the Bible and Pop Culture, Finding Our Creator and Superheroes, Prince Charming, and Other Modern Marvels. Kevin, how can we get this book and how can we get a hold of you?
Well, it is available at stores everywhere, like Walmart, Sam's Club, Barnes & Noble, also on Amazon. And you can also find me writing once or twice a week on BibleInPopCulture.com. Right now, I'm right in the middle of writing a whole bunch of stuff on the AD, the Bible Continues show.
Right.
Watching that every week and writing up on that. And once that's over, I'll spend more time writing about different summer movies and new TV shows and so forth.
Kevin Harvey, author, Christian, we appreciate you being part of the show. Come back and talk to us.
I will. Gladly. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Report in just a moment.